Good evening. In this video we will be talking about uh, three countries. These countries are diverse in terms of their political systems, in terms of the society, and also in their economic status. It's part of a comparative politics comparison between these three countries. The countries of interest are China, Japan, and the Togolese Republic. First, we will start with China. It's one of the biggest countries in the world. It's located on Southeast Asia. Its population is the largest population in the world, 1.4 billion people, which is 18% of the world population. It's the fourth biggest country in the world. Its capital city is located in Beijing. Its language is Mandarin. It's an historically important country with a 5,000-year-old history. Its GDP is the second biggest GDP in the world, $13.6 trillion, and it's the second largest economy in the world. The Togolese Republic, in comparison, is actually a very small country on the West African continent. Its capital city is Lome. Its population is 7.9 million people. It's located at the Gulf of Guinea. Its official language is French and Yoruba, and it's French because it was a French colony before the First World War. And its GDP is dramatically different from the two other countries that we are comparing, which is only 5.3 billion US dollars. The third country, which is the main focus of this video's comparison, in comparison with China, is Japan. Japan is an island located in East Asia. Its capital city is Tokyo. Its official language is Japanese. It has a population of 127 million people. It has a GDP of 4.9 trillion US dollars, and it's the third largest economy in the world, only after the United States and China. The Chinese economy has a very different history, and it has a very unexpected turn in its course. The modern Chinese Republic, which is the People's Republic of China, is predominantly a communist country. It started as a result of the 1949 revolution by Mao Zedong. It went through a couple of decades of extreme change and turmoil under Mao Zedong, and it changed its course actually, from a communist centralized planning economy into a vibrant capitalist and free market economy that was initiated in the 1980s by Deng Xiaoping, who was the successor to Mao Zedong. According to the World Bank, China is an upper middle income country. In its course in the last 3 decades, economically it has improved and developed so fast that it has lifted 850 million people out of poverty. There are a lot of controversies around the idea if China is a developed or a developing economy, since being a member of the World Trade Organization, China uses its status as a developing country to be able to devalue its currency and use its advantage in terms of trade and manufacturing. But there are a lot of problems with that, since the United States under Donald Trump was calling for more regulatory restrictions on China on the World Trade Organization's level. For China to be called a developed economy, it has to the World Trade Organization has to regulate its activity, and especially in terms of its currency. So we could say that China has developed really fast, and in macroeconomic senses, it's a huge economy, the second largest economy, but still it lacks on some basic issues that are relevant in other developing economies, such as workers' productivity, rate of employment, minimum wage, all of these things. But at the same time, it's a vibrant economy, and it's expected to rise even more. So we will compare Japan and China in terms of economy. After the Second World War, Japan being on the losing side, went through rapid economic changes. And it was expected in the 70s and 80s that Japan will even overtake the United States and become the world's biggest economy. But according to the chart that we have, uh, it shows that the Japanese economy since 2010 it has actually been decreasing in terms of nominal GDP. It has uh, it has reversed its course in terms of economic development. That in 2011 and 12, the nominal GDP of the country was well above $6 trillion, but today in 2020, it's at around estimated at around $5 trillion to $4 trillion. However, on the other chart, if we look at the development of the two economies in 1980 to 2023, which is the expected increase in both countries' GDPs, we see that the green line indicates Japan's economic development since 1980 to 2023, which will probably be at around $6 trillion, 5.9 to be exact. While in 2010 they had the same economy in terms of nominal GDP, but China has tripled and it's expected to quadruple its economy compared to Japan, which in 2023 will be expected at around $19.5 trillion and possibly overtaking the United States as the biggest economy in the world. These two countries are actually, besides their similarities in economic development and free market rapid change, as China went through huge economic development and GDP increase in the past 3 decades, which is usually referred to as the Chinese miracle. In terms of politics, China has been struggling, and it seems they are determined to stay that way. So, to compare the political systems of both countries, Japan is a constitutional monarchy, which the monarch, the emperor, is simply a figurehead and the head of a ceremonial position in the government, whilst the executive branch, headed by the prime minister, and the two other branches of the government, the legislative and also the judicial branch, uh, they equally practice power, and it's quite a dynamic democratic country. Uh, uh, One of the very few in the world, actually. And in terms of human rights, freedom of press, uh, they have very good scores, and it's a vibrant democracy, actually. But compare that to China, which is a one-party communist ruling system, which basically, uh, in theory, the party resembles the state itself, and it's bigger than the state in a sense that the Politburo and the Central Committee of the party had what the government should look like. The Communist Party is the general membership of millions of people, and then after that, it's the National People's Congress, which are elected every 5 years to run the basics of the country. And then there are the state bureaucracy, which is the state council, which is prime minister, ministers, and then that's these secretaries. Uh, Before the current head of the uh, head of the Chinese Communist Party, which is Xi Jinping at this moment, there were presidents actually, uh, the in the Chinese government, some sort of a semi-state inside the huge influence of the Communist Party. We have the influence of the military, which is the Central Military Commission, courts and prosecutors, but most of these things are allegedly actually quite controlled by the Communist Party. At this point, there has been a transition in the Chinese political system, which from a one-party rule has seemed to have changed to a one-man dictatorship. Uh, we could say that the transition from Deng Xiaoping to Xi Jinping is quite the same or parallel to the transition from Lenin to Stalin uh, in Soviet Russia. The Xi Jinping has with the support of the party and his repression of opposition, has removed term limits, and he could possibly remain the head of the state and the most powerful figure in China for life. So this is the political system and comparison of these two countries. The point of this video is comparing these three countries, and Togolese Republic in most cases is incomparable to two big economic powers such as Japan and China, but being a former colony has some sort of similarities with these two countries, especially with Japan, since Japan was uh, was mandated by the U.S. and most of the changes we could see in Japan are influenced by the American way of uh, life, American competitiveness and capitalism, and even today Japan does not have an active military, which is part of their constitution. Uh, so pretty much the United States is the main force for defending uh, the Japanese territory. Whilst at the same time, being a former colony of France, the Togolese Republic is actually quite controlled and influenced by the French government in terms of trade, foreign policy, and sometimes in internal political affairs. But economically, being part of the sub-Saharan African countries, Togo is seen to be one of those target countries that China is probably going to extend its influence into, while there is a competing French dominance culturally and politically in the region. So it's not clear where Togo would go in the future, politically and economically. But it seems that China, in her quest for world domination economically, is bringing more and more countries into his own side. And thank you.